Hey everybody, what's up? Tom here, back at you with another video.
Injury that meant I couldn't sit for protracted periods.
See, when you said that, I thought you were gonna say, yeah, I've only got 1.5 mirrors, and I just got into like juice T17s. I was like, no, I'm ahead of you for once. This is crazy. I can't believe this. This is gonna be a wild podcast, guys. Okay.
I probably have about 10 divines total wealth, but that's partly because, like, whenever I've got nothing else to do, I'm just jumping on and, like, I waste way too much time on the currency exchange just doing, like, the most basic, boring flips because it always feels so rewarding. It's like, it's honestly more rewarding than playing the game even later on.
Yeah.
And that ends up being this thing where I have to say, no, Gog, stop. Go and actually kill some monsters. I'm gold limited at least at the moment.
Yeah, right. The currency exchange and the auction house have been pretty addicting for me. That's one of the biggest additions from my perspective. Going shopping has never been more fun, and I am shocked at how well it integrated into the game. I thought it was going to be jank. It's actually quite smooth for me, and I'm able to do it all on one screen, which I'm really, really appreciative of. All right, Dreamcore, man, I've seen your build update progress, so I know how you've been doing, but let everybody else know. What'd your league start as, and what's your progress like right now?
Yeah, I've been playing a gas grenade Pathfinder, which has been a lot of fun. Gas grenade's a skill that I tested out quite a bit towards the end of 0.2. Mainly just to test out all of those changes they put into 0.2, like after the main patch, right? Because they put in so many changes, I thought, right, let's just do a fresh start. I basically just played gas grenade. That was on an Acolyte though, so that wasn't a Pathfinder. But I probably would have league started Acolyte if they hadn't changed reality rending, because that was like the main part of that build was the extra chaos damage, but they completely gutted that node. So yeah, I just started on Pathfinder and it's been a blast. Like I've done pretty much everything the character's done at this point. Like I'm moving on to something else now. I've done everything that I wanted to do. It's been really good.
Very impressive. I saw the build updates. Yeah, the gas grenade seems extremely powerful. The highlight reel that I think you posted, maybe it was yesterday or the day before, was just crazy. Yeah. Watching the bosses just melt with like one thrust. It's like, holy crap.
Yeah, that build has no problem with damage. It does have its weaknesses. Like it's not very fast like a deadeye in mapping or something like that. But it has its strengths. Like it's probably one of the best, if not the best, simulacrum farmer in the game, because you cover the entire simulacrum arena in gas cloud, and there's just every monster that spawns is just degenning it immediately. You know, you've got like all of those really strong poisons laying on the ground waiting for the bosses to spawn. As soon as they spawn, they just melt.
Yeah. Yeah, it looked fun. It looked fun. Might have to give it a go. I'm definitely going to do multiple builds this league. It's not going to be kind of a one and done like it was with Dawn of the Hunt or even 0.1 for me. So they have me captured, local hole. I think they also have you captured because right before I started recording, you said, oh my gosh, I gotta log out. I gotta pull myself from the game. So, local hole, what did you league start as? And what's your progress like?
I was wondering if I could get away with playing during the podcast, but it would have been too obvious. But I like started grenade deadeye. It's just so stupid, dude. It's too strong. It deals way too much damage. Like I actually released a build update where in the thumbnail I said like GG, please nerf this, and it pissed people off so much. But it's like it trivializes the game. Everything is just so easy on it. And at this point I've done everything. Like all the Uber bosses killed in under a second. Juice tier 16s, everything. Like there's no point of friction with the build where you hit a point where you're like, oh crap, I need damage or I'm dying too much. It's just like it destroys everything. And
how was the campaign? Was the campaign super easy too? You just smooth through?
Easy. Wow. Like all the bosses got killed in like I didn't even see their mechanics. It like spoiled it for me because they just died instantly. You throw down a whole load of grenades, boss spawns, blow it up, dead. Don't even get to see the fight, and it's like it's kind of kind of sucks.
I think that's
Like,
something we need to discuss in this podcast. Actually, it's a really important point. I think the balance of the game right now. I'm not talking about skill balance between characters. I'm talking about the balance of the monsters versus player power is completely backwards, right? At the moment, the
Weird.
bosses are too easy, and then you find like random monsters in maps, like trash monsters, that will just one-shot you with like the Abyss monsters, for example, just come down.
Yeah.
Right at the start of the league, those things were just absolutely owning right before they nerfed them. But I feel like it should be the other way around. Like, the bosses should be the really difficult part, because those are the really fun encounters, right? That's where there's the lot of skill expression and stuff in the game. But it's
Dreamcore.
completely backwards right now.
I feel like
That's
I've
about
heard
how
this.
being
Heard this from like another game before. Have I heard like does this happen in another game? Dog, you were saying something.
Elden Ring?
Yeah, I mean, this comes down to player power being off the planet wrong, because, like, my experience playing... Okay, so I didn't know Fireball had been nerfed until late on day one, and the numbers are like 40% lower than what was advertised in the patch notes for the Fireball secondary projectiles. So, based on that, like, I was essentially going through a couple of gem levels behind, and the bosses were genuinely tough with that. You genuinely had to play all the mechanics. You had to, you know, you didn't have to dodge everything, but you had to dodge most things. Otherwise, you would run out of life flasks before the boss went down. And so that was the sort of reason that I got to really learn a lot of those bosses through it. Like, for instance, Torvian, I had to figure out what the gimmick was, because a lot of people said, yeah, I just had crazy DPS, I didn't even know he had gimmicks. But if you play that fight at the intended power level, it is an awesome fight. And for those of you that aren't aware, this is the third last boss in Act 4. And it's the arena gladiator fight, where the gladiator cheats and has a bunch of NPCs helping him by channeling various buffs on him. It's a really awesome fight, because you then go and interfere with those buffs. And so you've got all this stuff to do. But if you were to go in there with 3 times the intended DPS, then he's dead before any of this happens. And it's just like... Oh, was that a boss? Oh, okay.
Exactly. And is that a balance issue with skills, or are...
It is partly skills, for sure, because right now, like, crossbows are completely overtuned. Bows are completely overtuned. It's actually, I would actually argue it's a lot of the attack skills. Like, even maces completely trivialize bosses in the campaign. Like, you can just one-shot bosses all the way through the campaign with maces as well, right? So, I feel like they've got the balance quite good on spells. But at the same time, it is much easier for them to balance spells, I would say, generally, because the difference between... Because the damage is, like, multiplied like crazy, right, on an attack. Especially for some skills. Like, for example, imagine trying to balance, like, here's a skill that hits once and does, like, 300% of weapon damage, and here's a skill that has 500% of weapon damage, and then you can throw an extra 2 projectiles on top of it, and all of them overlap, right? This is really hard stuff to balance when you have some guy with a 75 DPS crossbow, and another guy at the same stage has a 200 DPS crossbow, right?
I think
the
that
experience is completely different.
Yeah.
The gear discrepancy that you get, because in Path of Exile 1, okay, granted none of this is obvious to a new player, but there are ways that you can just deterministically craft yourself something that is at least serviceable gear. Whereas I hit a real brick wall in Act 3, and like I found Act 3 was struggle. Then you get access to Ange in Act 4, and immediately it's like, oh, okay, now I can trade, because without Ange you can't trade now, because the old system's still there, but no one answers at all. Like, no one's using the old system. So, at this point, you're forced into SSF, and then suddenly you're free from SSF prison, and you go from having the best weapon that you've found in the entire game was a +2 two-handed staff with only one other live mod on it, and you go from that to having a +2 focus and a +3 wand that cost nothing, and that are, like, at least serviceable in endgame. They're not good in endgame, but they're serviceable.
This is such a tough problem to solve in a game like PoE 2. wherein all the drops are random. Like, I think if this was a game like, and no shade guys, we're just chatting, like Diablo 4, where the drops are tailored to your class, you know that you're going to get that damage upgrade, right? You know that you can scale the boss in a certain way because you're going to get a drop that relates to your class, right? In PoE 2, it can be super, super variable. How in the world do they balance something like this? Because I experienced kind of the middle ground of what's going on here. I didn't obliterate the bosses like Local Hole and Dream Core, but I basically didn't see any mechanics for most of the Act 1, 2, 3, or 4, even the interlude bosses, on Hollow Palm Technique, which is what I played. I played Acolyte of Cholula with Ice Strike, and that was really fun. But between chill and just the amount of damage I was doing without a weapon, I'm just using Hollow Palm and scaling with gem level and just being smart about my gear upgrades. I was blasting through stuff. For example, it wasn't Torbjorn. I actually saw the mechanics of Torbjorn, but the guy after him, I basically would kill him in about 10 seconds. Yeah, the awesome, basically Cirrus 2.0 is what I call him. He's really cool. Didn't see any mechanics, and then it was even more egregious with the Act 4 boss. I killed him almost instantly as well. And it was shocking. And there was no big upgrade between Torbjorn and that guy. I just got the proper freeze in. I was chilling him. He didn't really do anything, and that feels really bad. But the disparity is so great because then I talked to my friend, and they're exactly like you, Sirkog. They played spells. They kind of saw this same exact scenario where it's like, oh my gosh, it is an absolute war of attrition, these bosses. So what do you guys think they can do? Because obviously, I'm sure they see this, right? But how do they address it?
They have to redistribute the power onto like other things, because currently, especially on attack builds, 90% of your power comes from your weapon. If you get a good weapon, you will kill a boss in 1 second. With the exact same setup and a crap weapon, you can have the most miserable experience. So more power needs to come from like supports, the tree. There needs to be more of a ground floor for expected weapon. So if there was like some kind of less RNG aspect where it could come down to like which rares are you getting from your vendors? What are your currency orbs hitting? Are you getting elemental damage runes or not? Are you getting enough sockets on your gear? So if there's like, again, the crafting bench. The crafting bench could be like a baseline power where you say, if you introduce this to players, this is a baseline power that you expect all players to have. Whereas currently, right now, there's too much randomness where how are you meant to balance when one player could get 2 elemental damage runes that could make them trivialize a boss, and another player doesn't get that, but it's not consistent. So then they probably have to lean on balance the boss for worst case scenario, and then for people who did get a bit lucky, they just like destroy it.
That makes sense.
Yeah,
I mean, that's,
You go, Drake.
I think it just has to also come down to a little bit of skill balance. Obviously, like right now, it's pretty obvious that some attack skills are just a little bit too high on the top end. And that stuff will come over time. I think they will just tweak things, right? It's like, with that sort of thing, it is kind of so easy to just over-nerf something or over-buff something, and then that thing's doing the exact same thing that you were just trying to stop, right? So, yeah, I think there is a bit of that. But yeah, Local brings up a good point. It's like balancing around a good middle ground, and then being able to, you know, introduce like, this is what the person should have at this stage of the game, like access to these runes, or a baseline of like this weapon with this much approximate damage, right? That sort of stuff. That's a good way to go about it, I think.
Yeah, I think that for attack-based things to deal with RNG, this is something I've said in PoE 1 before as well, although it hasn't been that important in PoE 1 because you can sort of circumvent this step, but through things like vendor recipes. I think that the merciless dual series of weapon affixes have their numbers too high, and that causes grinding gear games to have to balance the actual base weapon numbers for physical damage too low. Because they have to expect, oh, okay, you're at endgame, you're going to have maybe a tyrannical, maybe a high roll cool weapon as your sort of ballpark entry level figure. If you were to make it so that you drop those numbers by 60%, then you could give that power back through just making the baseline effects of the weapon better. Now that's only going to work for physical attacks. For elemental attacks you'd need other solutions, but again, like potentially you could have it so that only one elemental damage can roll on a weapon, but the numbers go much higher. I don't know. Maybe you make it so that there's less divergence tier to tier with those sorts of numbers that you've got, so that you don't feel like you're so far behind. But the big elephant in the room is +X to skills suffixes. This mod is too strong, and if you don't get it, you are just so far behind someone that gets it. It's the worst form of RNG dependency that's still in the game. And it was really noticeable to me just going from having nothing, from having none of that stat to getting a +2 in the early game was just like out of sight. You go from being miles behind the expected level to slightly above it, then you sort of fall back because +2 is not enough later game, and then you go from +2 to +5, and it's like, oh wow, suddenly I got a -6 until like the very end of Act 4 at least, and then only in the interludes do you start really coming up against the spells you're using just aren't that strong.
Yeah, and
that's a great point.
I think you guys are all bringing up really great points. I think the most base level one though, local, you brought it up right at the beginning, and I keep seeing it over and over from a lot of people who come into the stream, and I think it would be the best solution immediately is just bringing more power to the passive tree. Something everybody has access to. It's something everybody should come to understand if they're playing a game like Path of Exile 2, whether you're following a build guide and trying to make something yourself. Something that's right in front of you. It's not something that's hidden behind some arcade crafting system with hidden mods and all that. Right there, you should be able to get a decent chunk of power and progress through the game if you're making the right gear choices and skill choices with the help from the tree. So, that's the tree itself also. I guess we'll skip right into it since we popped into that discussion. I kind of want to chat about this. Dreamcore, I'll put the link in the description below, but you released an excellent video, the state of 0.3's meta, where you broke down basically the ascendancy disparity and where people are starting on the passive tree, where they path, and I thought it was so fascinating to look at. And upon thinking about it, I came to the opinion that maybe there isn't a lot of problems with like the current skill power for the most part, or the current ascendancy power, but it's more so the lack of options that currently exist on the tree, because DGG have decided to have the game basically as a fully released game that helps you balance it without like half the classes in the game, half the nodes available. I'd be really curious to get your guys' opinions. Since GGG have once again decided to push this patch out and fully focus on balance, which we discussed in the last podcast, instead of adding new options to the game, will the game ever be truly balanced or in a steadier state until everything is in the game and you can look at it instead of just trying to knock out the rest? Because I feel like every single time a new archetype is introduced, a new weapon is introduced, everything will be thrown into disarray. Now that might be like a polarizing statement or maybe completely wrong, but I'd be really curious to get your guys' thoughts on it. Dream, I know you released a video, so I'll start with you. Do you have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think the answer to will the game ever be balanced is no, because it's the same over in PoE 1, the game's never balanced. But actually, the game doesn't need to be balanced. All that really needs to be there is that there's some resistance. Like, it needs to be a little bit balanced, and then the game needs to be changed enough every patch to the point where people can have that fun experience of like theory crafting for the league. That is for me personally as a player, and I'm sure for a lot of people, the most fun part of the Path of Exile League is, here's a new patch and nobody knows what the strongest thing is, and everybody's like theory crafting builds and things like that before the league actually launches. I can say from personal experience that whenever, and this happened, I think it was around patch 317 in PoE 1, they generally started to do less balance. When patches would come out, they would do less and less balance, basically. And I can say from personal experience that made the patch release a lot less exciting for me, because everyone went into a patch kind of knowing, this is going to be the strongest build because it was the strongest build last league and nothing has really changed, right? So, I think and obviously you bring up a great point there about there's not really all of the tools in the game yet, so being able to get like a level playing field is not really there. obviously the left side of the tree is missing a huge amount of classes and ascendancies, right? There's just a ton of stuff missing from the left side of the tree. We don't even have a strength in class yet. That part of the tree, that entire quadrant of the tree is just... It's you look at all the nodes there, like they haven't touched them since launch pretty much. A bunch of them are just nothing much of anything. So that will definitely improve the kind of tree balance overall. If they introduce the druid next patch, right, which is I think it's confirmed, right, then there will be, you know, let's say they introduce 2 or 3 ascendancies with the druid, suddenly we have a more balanced thing going on. As it is right now, there's 3 ascendancies on the left side of the tree, and I think there's, how many on the right side? Like 6 ascendancies. So it's like, and also, a lot of people already have the opinion that, you know, energy shield and evasion was already good going into this patch. They kind of improved it a little bit, and now it's like, yeah, and obviously that side of the tree also has more movement speed. They have generally better tools, I would say, at their disposal. So yeah, that's kind of how it feels for me at the moment. It feels like there's a bit of an imbalance on the tree, but that will probably be fixed over time with new things being introduced.
I think you effectively communicated what I wanted to communicate far more. The fact that, okay, balance isn't ever going to happen, right? But it is less fun when everything is solved and known before anything even drops. For example, right, before this patch dropped, everybody was saying deadeye #1, lightning arrow #1 that's going to blast the game. What ended up happening? Basically that. There were other new interesting builds, you know, we have, you know, I was going to say local hole, you're a deadeye build, bro. I know you're grenades, but you're still a deadeye, man. We had Hollow Palm, which ended up being pretty cool for a lot of players, and a few other builds, but yeah, deadeye dominated. It's like, what, 48% of those, of the characters are deadeye, and then a good chunk of those are lightning arrow. That makes the game a lot less fun. So yeah, I totally agree with what you said there, and I retract
One thing to
my
mention
statement.
though, about the Deadeye
Yeah.
as well, that I discussed a little bit in that video, is that, and this kind of goes back to the balance thing where the bosses are being trivialized right now. If damage is not a problem, right, for a build, the next best thing is speed. And Deadeye is that is just the class that you want for moving at the fastest possible speed, attacking at the fastest possible speed, right? So it's like, if there was a problem there with getting